This blade is extremely dangerous. The slightest misstep and we'll end up like him. Everyone surely knows who its owner is. Yes, it's the vampire hunter Blade Runner. Blade's sole purpose in life is to eradicate vampires from the world. Blade has a unique identity. He possesses half vampire and half human genes, granting him vampire abilities and immunity to sunlight. So why did Blade become a nightmare for vampires? The story begins in a hospital in 1967. A pregnant woman is attacked by a vampire, her life hanging by a thread. Despite the doctor's efforts, the mother tragically passes away. Blade is adopted by an extraordinary old man who is not only a vampire hunter but also a weapons master. All of Blade's equipment is handcrafted by him, and Blade receives regular injections of an antitoxin serum to suppress his craving for human blood and prevent him from becoming a heartless vampire. Late at night, a young man follows a beautiful woman to a hidden nightclub. The young man thinks he's about to have a romantic encounter, unaware that he has entered a den of vampires. When he realizes something is amiss, it's already too late. He's about to become the vampire's midnight snack. Suddenly, a man appears, his imposing presence causing the vampires to retreat. Blade pulls out his gun and starts shooting. All of his weapons are made of pure silver. The vampires hit by his bullets are instantly reduced to ashes. His iconic sword is unstoppable, wielding a deadly boomerang that mercilessly harvests the evil souls of vampires. In the blink of an eye, only a small vampire leader remains, who has escaped from Blade many times. Facing the grumbling vampire, Blade decides not to let him die so easily and sets him on fire. With such a commotion, the police naturally arrive on the scene. Blade quietly slips away, leaving behind a dashing figure. Late at night, the hospital receives a charred body. When the doctors open the body bag, a strong stench hits them. The blood in the body is noticeably different from that of a regular person. To uncover the truth, the doctor prepares to perform an autopsy, but in the next second, the charred body suddenly revives and lunges at the male doctor, biting him. The female doctor, Karen, terrified, flees but cannot escape her fate of being bitten. At that moment, a dark figure appears at the end of the corridor. Blade confronts the vampire and delivers a powerful punch, pulling out his iconic sword to sever the vampire's arm. Seeing that the man is attacking people, the security guard draws his gun and shoots at Blade relentlessly. Seizing the opportunity, the vampire breaks through a window and escapes. Blade looks at Karen, who is dying on the floor. He knows all too well that if no action is taken promptly, she will soon become another vampire. So, the Blades took her to an abandoned factory. This is Blade and Whistler's secret base. Looking at Karen, who was bitten, Whistler's treatment is crude but effective. He injects her with a large dose of garlic extract, which temporarily suppresses her transformation into a vampire. The next day, Karen wakes up safe and sound. Blade and Whistler know that anyone targeted by vampires has only one fate, so they plan to take Karen to the street where she lived in full view of everyone. Karen thought vampires were afraid of the sun and very safe during the day. However, on her way home, several people with special symbols appear around Karen. Unbeknownst to her, all of these people are servants of vampires, humans who desire to become vampires themselves. As expected, a police officer barges into Karen's home, with Blade secretly protecting her. He appears just in time and brutally beats the policeman, discovering the same mark on the man's neck. It turns out that the world has been completely infiltrated by vampires, with even the police transporting fresh blood for them. At night, they track the police all the way into the club owned by Frost, the vampire leader. Blade captures the officer and interrogates him, extracting information about the hidden chamber accessed through the kitchen's refrigerator. In the chamber lies a 2-ton vampire who has been transformed into this state by the uncontrolled consumption of blood. He manages the vampire database. Recently, he helped Frost translate a death book, which contains an evil ritual. By sacrificing 12 pure-blooded vampires, they can summon the blood god. Frost, ambitious to dominate the world, wants to obtain the power of the blood god. As a halfway decent vampire who has never been recognized by the Elders Association, to establish his authority, Frost and his henchmen exposed one of the elders to sunlight, burning him alive. Meanwhile, a large number of vampires storm in. Blade is caught off guard and trapped. The vampire, previously burnt by the Blade Runner, regained his human form and regrew his arms after feeding on the blood. He vowed to avenge his broken arm and make the Blade fighter pay. Whenever Blade is in danger, Whistler always shows up in time to help. This time is no exception. The violent explosion alerted more vampires. In the midst of the chaos, Blade once again severs Vampire's arm. Although they manage to escape, Blade sustains multiple injuries. It is then that Karen learns of Blade's unfortunate life from Whistler's lips. Blade's body is half vampire genetics and only needs a night's rest to recover. To stop Frost's plot, Karen, a blood specialist, conducts extensive tests. She discovers that when an anticoagulant is combined with vampire blood, it creates a powerful explosion. This becomes the latest weapon against vampires. What the Blade Runner doesn't know is, to summon the blood god, Frost needs more than just 12 vampires. He also needs a daywalker who is unaffected by the sun like Blade. Frost smears sunscreen on himself and meets Blade during the day, pretending to invite him to join their organization. Blade, a sworn enemy of vampires, naturally doesn't believe Frost's deceitful words. Blade rescues a little girl, and Frost disappears without a trace. On the other side, taking advantage of Blade's absence, Frost and his minions attack Whistler's base. They not only capture Karen but also severely injure Whistler, leaving him on the brink of death. Frost does this to lure Blade into seeking revenge, as his blood is necessary to summon the blood god. Whistler advises Blade not to fall into the trap. Whistler chose to end his life with a bullet to prevent turning into a vampire. Blade loses his only family member. Determined to seek revenge, he embarks on a journey after gathering and preparing his weapons. Blade rides his motorcycle into the vampire's lair. Driven by anger, the Blade Runner becomes a bullet of revenge and opens up a reaping mode. This anticoagulant is highly effective. Every vampire struck by it will explode without exception. In a white room, a large bed suddenly opens, leaving Blade dumbfounded. His deceased mother has turned into a vampire and become Frost's woman. It's like a bolt from the blue, shattering Blade's willpower. Blade was electrocuted and left defenseless. Now, all the conditions are met. Frost brings Blade to the vampire temple, where the 12 pure-blood vampires stand at designated positions corresponding to their marks. Blade is taken to the top of the temple and fixed inside a specially crafted sarcophagus. As the mechanism operates, Blade's wrist is cut, and a large amount of blood gushes out instantly. The blood flows slowly through the design channels. Soon, the blood converges at the top of the temple and drips onto Frost's forehead. In a moment, the wind and clouds changed and the lightning activated an ancient and evil spell in the temple. The power of the 12 vampires breaks free from their physical restraints and merges into Frost's body. Frost finally attains the terrifying power of the blood god. As the blood ritual unfolds, Karen manages to escape the dungeon and rescue Blade from the sarcophagus. However, Blade's blood has run dry, and his body becomes weak. Karen implores Blade to drink her blood to stop the catastrophe. Blade has half of the vampire gene in him, and human blood can provide him with endless power. In the blink of an eye, the weakened Bladesman regained his full strength. It's time for him to seek revenge against Frost. A vampire arrogantly taunts Blade while holding a pair of glasses, but is swiftly killed with a single strike. Blade dons his sunglasses and initiates the battle. After dealing with a horde of minions, Blade finally faces the ultimate showdown. Empowered by the blood god's strength, Frost becomes more powerful than ever before. Regardless of the injuries he sustains, his body instantly regenerates. Blade used the mechanism on the hilt to get the anti-clotting serum and transformed into a black whirlwind and fired it at Frost. True to its effect, Frost's body rapidly swells and eventually explodes on the spot. The blood god crisis finally comes to an end. However, the vampires have not been eradicated. They still lurk in various corners of the world. Blade, the warrior dedicated to eliminating all vampires, knows that his battle is far from over.